All right, welcome back, everybody, to the Manual Podcast. I'll try anything twice. Bringing back our KingMakers lead coach, Mark Sappington, and our newest hire, Jason Dudziak. What's going on, boys?
What's going on, everybody?
Good to be here.
Nick, good to see you. Jason.
Happy feast day of the solemnity of Mary. Get our Catholic on right away. How's your guys' week going? Anything, what came up this week for you?
Shoot. Go ahead, Jason. Go ahead.
I had a great conversation yesterday just on LinkedIn, just cranking out messages. I wouldn't say they're cold, like totally random people, but, you know, it's LinkedIn. So I don't deeply know these people. And get one message out, got to be 10 minutes later. He's like, hey, are you free this afternoon? Can we talk? I was like, sure. I mean, that could mean anything. But in this case, it was like, hey, I'm shopping around. What's your guys' system? So it was just exciting to get that kind of quick feedback.
Porn-free shopping?
I want to be porn-free shopping. Yeah.
Awesome.
So that was a great conversation, and I love the way these guys sometimes just dive in. I've never talked to this guy before, but right off the bat, you know, hey, this is a weekly, monthly, whatever it is, you know, they just dive right in. So I love that. I love being able to go deep right away. So that was one of the highlights for this past week.
Come on. Yeah, Jason, this is wrapping up week 2, right?
I think week 3.
Week 3, full-time, lead gen, getting after it. A lot of warm outreach, cold outreach, spraying the gun everywhere and hitting the target sometimes. So stay in the trenches, man. Way to get out there.
Yeah, man. It's been fun talking about porn.
Who would have thought?
It's always fun to talk about porn, you know what I mean?
Well,
man.
Mark, talk to us. How's your week?
Oh, it was good. It was good. I kind of had some, we had KingMakers on Monday night. So that was our second month. So that was excellent. Kind of had some guys with some breakthroughs. So that was probably the highlight. And then that and just navigating, you know, family life. Got a couple kids, third on the way. Wife is at a maternity appointment right now. And so mother-in-law's in town helping take care of the kids. And so that's been good. Got what did I do? I was on the high dive yesterday at our local pool, 6 to 8 p.m. They do $3 a person for
per high dive.
Just to get in, price of admission. If you want to watch me do the high dive, it's going to cost you a little more.
Pay to watch me.
That's right. Bitcoin only, folks. But yeah, I was doing a gainer and I just came, you know, went around once and then went flat on my back from about I bet I got up to like 16 feet above water. And it was a good reminder of my mortality and that I'm, you know, well, I can still flip like I used to. It just doesn't feel as good.
Come on.
That's
I'll wait for the invite next time.
Do you got like a crowd of middle schoolers around watching you dive and do all these gainers?
What's funny is, there was nobody at the high dive, and then I started getting after it, and within about 2 minutes, there were about 12 people. So people were lining up. And so then, you know, it turns into some encouragement, and you know, you had some lifeguard had to run over actually to. There was somebody that got like, I don't know if they were afraid of heights or something like that, but they just froze up there. So there's this like teenager that runs over, comes up, helps bring somebody down. I was like, whoa. So, no, but it was good. It
was real.
Yeah, it is. But I don't know. I think of permission granting. You know, you go out there, you do something crazy, and someone else says, well, okay, maybe I could try that. So how about you, Nick?
I walked into the gym yesterday, probably 3 minutes till somebody turned off your notifications.
I'm turning them off. What the heck?
And I kind of get in my position in the gym, and my the trainer, John Brown, walks up to me, but he's about 20 feet away, and he walks up with intentionality, like pointing at me, like, I want to say something to you. And he's got this look in his face.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, what's he coming to say? And he goes, you doing all right? And no guy, I don't know about you guys, but no guy really likes to be asked, like, hey, are you doing okay? Yeah. But he asked it in such a way that was like, I don't know, it's maybe only the way John Brown could do it, but he says, hey, you doing okay? And then he quickly said, last night, I kind of got hit. I got hit and you came to mind. And that was his language. And I got hit with this thought. I wonder how Nick's doing. That's it. So you doing okay? And the reality is it's been a grind of a week. I think a big part of it is just, man, I don't know, Jason, if you've been experiencing this at all, you know, 3 weeks in. And Mark, you know, I know you've done plenty of the entrepreneurial adventures and just going after God's call in your life. But like the self-doubt and the imposter and all the lies that can undergird a lot of things that'll cripple us. You know, you got that kid in the high dive and just the power of fear to cripple you. And I was like, man, John, I don't know. I've just been struggling a little bit with self-doubt, struggling with, really believing in myself, just like sharing some of this. And he just like steps into it. And he's like, brother. And this guy, 2 years ago, I started coming to this gym. A month before I came to the gym, I told him, so I got to the gym, I was telling him my story, and he goes, man, it's crazy. You're the third Christian that's come to this gym in the last 3 weeks. He goes, I just got baptized a month ago. Long story there. But this guy, tatted up, bald head, stone cold killer. This guy is a boss. And he just starts speaking to me like, Nick, he just started speaking to my heart. Like a minute before we're about to crank this workout, I start crying. I'm like, John, I said, John, don't do this to me, man. He goes, and he just kind of like grabbed me. He's like, just brother, I got you, man. He's got you. Like, stay in it. And he just called out just the diabolical lies that'll come. So it was powerful, man. So anybody in the Kansas City area looking to get your physical fitness on and get some of those mental toxic thoughts out, come to Rev Gym and experience John Brown.
Yeah. A note on that imposter syndrome too is just like, I think it's always action that gets us out of the imposter syndrome loop that can kind of keep you stuck, right? Because it's like, oh man, whether it's Satan or just your own mind running through, but just kind of getting you locked in your own head.
Yep.
It's like, well, hey, I got to go on a walk. I got to go on a run. I got to take an ice bath. I got to lift something heavy. I got to go serve someone, but it has to be active. Otherwise, to your point, it's like, okay, well then I entertain that kind of loop. That's my own experience after, whether it's, Well,
that's a great transition, Mark. 2 weeks ago, we unpacked our favorite definition of addiction, which if you guys didn't listen to, that was 2 weeks ago, episode 6, I believe. And an addiction is an illegitimate way to fill a legitimate need, habituated over time without the ability to stop on your own. We broke open each one of those 4 pieces to what kind of creates this lifestyle, this addiction within the brain. But once porn is gone, or even in the process of ridding it and you're getting more freedom back in your life, you're left staring at a question. And this is really phase 3 for us and the KingMakers stuff, Mark, that you're leading, that can be even feel bigger. It is now what? Today we're talking about those legitimate needs that whatever addiction you might have is trying to fill. Things like purpose, creativity, connection with others, as we talked about, I think last week, that sex is not a legitimate need, but communion certainly is, and how to meet them in ways that actually satisfy lasting connection. Because real freedom isn't about removing. We've said before, you don't want to have a goal that a dead person can accomplish. It's about building a life so rich and so meaningful that there's no looking back, hand to the plow sort of stuff. So to kind of frame it up, there's two kind of a 2-front battle in the battle for addiction. There's how I'll phrase is like the negative and then the positive. The negative is the things to not do, the things to block, the environments to avoid, the thought patterns to stop going down, right? The internet blockers, whatever that is the quote, not bad negative, but negative of like, stop this, don't do that. But then there's the positive, right? There's the offensive, there's the defensive strategy, and then the offensive that really goes a long way, even in the midst of experiencing freedom from whatever our addictions are. And certainly whenever you get some freedom back in your life, the horizons start opening, and questions around what is my purpose start really surfacing, and the weight of those are really good ways to start to feel that more. But even in the midst of it, even in the midst of the battle for addiction, that's what we want to talk about today. The kind of offensive strategies, the legitimate needs that we have as humans, and even uniquely to you, and then filling those legitimate needs that take really a full active participation of yourself and of your thought and energy. And it's not just vegging out, but requires a kind of crossing the chicken line to engage those. So that's the conversation we want to have today with you guys. So Mark, Jason, love just to kick it to you guys. What are a couple, one, maybe 2 legitimate needs that you find in your life that when you're not filling, you can kind of be living on your heels, and when you are filling those legitimate needs in healthy ways, that you're living on the offense?
Yeah, I'll kick it off. One for me that jumps through is just order, So if I don't have a certain kind of framework for my life, I can get a little bit, I don't even know if it's overwhelmed, But the way that I cope with that is by distracting myself, kind of busying myself as opposed to sitting down, putting my day on paper. Maybe I've had 4 or 5. I work in, a couple different areas, own a business, own a coffee roasting business, own a retail shop, and then I work in kind of premium roofing. So those, I'm constantly getting calls with problems that need to be solved. Some of them my fault, some of them not mine, and then others that are just more so opportunities. So if I don't reframe or kind of fix the logistical side of my day, I'll live on my heels. And so I think, a legitimate need I have is to have those things ordered enough to where I can deal with them. And when I don't do that, I'll just get on my phone. I might scroll. I might, distract myself with a podcast or something of the sort, when really I just need to take 5 minutes to get it down on paper and then put it in its list of priorities. And anytime I do that, I've even seen that journaling 3 lines before the end of a night with a couple of thoughts that you might have, that it just kind of puts them into a physical space where they're contained. Whereas the mind, it can just kind of go all over. And then I'm looking for a couple, maybe I'll go get a snack, or maybe I'll look at porn, or, any of these things. Yeah.
Mark, would you say you're naturally inclined to put that order in place, or is that something you really got to work at?
Yeah, it's something I have to swim upstream for sure. I'd be, I'll find something that catches my eye, and I find myself, more in the present moment there. And so, yeah, it's definitely a muscle that I've had to build over the past, probably 12 years since I started really attacking things. I'm 34 now, but I was probably 21 when I said, okay, I've really got to not fly by the seat of my pants. And I've come to, just for anybody out there who needs encouragement, I've come to find out that I will always have to work to put order in my life. I have many people in my life that are just very meticulous, that are always, they've got a good schedule, this, that, and the other. But what I've, I guess had some grace for myself is that, this problem is never going to be solved for me. This is something I'm always just going to have to be mindful of and manage. And so, but it's a legitimate need. So if I neglect it, a lot of other things break down, or I go into, kind of onto a bad path, or more destructive path, I guess, or more neglectful. It's a great question.
I love that. I agree with that. I just personally wouldn't. I mean, I probably tend towards. I definitely tend towards desiring that order and wanting it. Whether it be my office or just habits, like good habits that I'm trying to build. As life stressors develop, it could be. It's like those things fall apart for me, and I've got to reset, like you're saying, and get back to just that intentional time. Almost like that, safe harbor practice of just setting aside time to look at the week ahead or the day ahead and put something down on paper. That's a good one. I got to do that too.
Best night, start the night before.
That's it. I will say, setting my clothes out, putting the schedule down, breathing exercises, right? It's kind of more, I just need, for lack of a better term, I know my operating system. And if I work that plan, it's just a few 4 or 5 different things, right?
Yep.
It's, getting up when my alarm goes off, adhering to kind of a timetable that I've set for the day. It's got flexibility, but adhering to that, making sure I'm getting some physical activity in, silence for reading and prayer, and then finishing my work day and actually saying, okay, hey, I've put a bow on this. It doesn't mean that everything got done that I wanted to, but I have it set aside. If I do those 5 things, I know that I'm going to be in order. So It's just about, yeah.
But you, Jason?
There's a lot that comes to mind, but I think the root of it for me is a sense of purpose. And it's interesting, over the past year, this has been kind of like the hot button issue for me. About a year ago, I was just, I had a couple different jobs that I was just getting to the point where I'm like, I don't think I want to go where this is going. Like the vision, I felt like there was no vision going forward. And so not having that vision or sense of purpose for me just kind of takes my legs out from underneath me. And it just creates the environment, whether you could say internally or just in my environment, like external environment, it just kind of creates this space for, bad things to happen. That could be anything from just wasting time on social media or pornography or what have you. Anyways, last year I had met with a counselor, I had met with some mentors, and I was really diving into this question of like, what's like I don't want to say like, what's my purpose? Like it's the end all be all, but just a greater sense of purpose. And there was this this book that I read, Finding Your Why by Simon Sinek. And
Start with why.
there's the Start Your Why, and then
It's
there's like the
finding your why.
practical version of Finding Your Why.
I haven't even heard of that.
And there's a couple different exercises in the book, and the one is just a fill in the blank statement. And the fill in the blank is to blank, so that blank. And I took some time to really, just pray through that, think through that. And it really struck me that my why statement is to heal so that others may be free. And that's a really long story of all the stuff that I was thinking through,
Yeah.
either as in my childhood and through like some of the things that I really excelled in with different jobs that I've had. It all came back to this idea of like, I want to be a part of that in someone's life, like helping them heal. So anyways, that was really something that I was thinking is like fundamental to me before it gets to any sort of like, what do I like to do with my free time, and what do I like to do with, what the things that I like to do. And that's really what it came down to, purpose.
Jason, that's super relatable. I know a lot of guys come to the Freedom Group. A couple of different things come to mind. One, stress is often an underlying trigger or baseline state that acting out sexually kind of spawns from. And two, a lot of that's even due to like lack of purpose in their job and just a grind, like waking up exhausted, not because of necessarily a lack of sleep. Certainly that might play a part of it, but just not excited. They're not waking up like John Eldridge says, like a prize fighter entering the ring when the bell goes off, like, let's go. Or it's Christmas morning. It's dread, fear, kind of despondency. So I think what you experienced and what you were just talking about is super relatable to a lot of guys listening. What would you say, whether to yourself a year ago, what were you saying to yourself, or what would you say to somebody listening, like, and maybe like, let's say they're like, they can't necessarily get out of that job in the foreseeable future. Like, what sort of counsel would you give?
Yeah. That was the situation for me for quite a few years, where I was just like, well, I'm doing everything on my part to like, try to stay engaged on a personal, like family life and with friends, trying to stay engaged in those relationships because those are important. But then even in the day-to-day work, Colossians 3:23 is whatever you do, work at it with all your heart as working for the Lord and not for men. So that type of mentality of regardless of whether or not I feel like I'm in my purpose, quote unquote, whatever I feel that most makes me come alive, regardless of that, like I still need to show up, be faithful, and like bring everything I can. Now, you could be in a really stressful situation as I was, and it's like you gotta look for a healthier environment to be in, a healthier work environment. But when you're you're doing all the things to make that happen, you have to be intentional and active in that search, and appropriate. You got to be faithful to the work that you're doing, but you also have to be active in like looking for a better situation for yourself. And I think it was really what helped me get through was almost in my like walk with the Lord, accepting a position of docility. Like, here I am, Lord. You see me not doing well in this. Is this the way you want me to live? I don't think it is. Where do I go from here? What do I do? And it wasn't so much that prayer was answered, like, here, just get out of that situation. It was more so it was almost like a mirror back to me of like, you have kind of a dependency and an attachment to feeling really good about what you're doing and feeling really good about, whatever it is, like.
Say that again. What do you mean by that? That's really good.
Which part?
You have an attachment to feeling really good about what you're doing.
Yeah. So it was like this sense of, I'm trying to think of an example. Let's say, I don't have any good examples right now, but just the idea of what sort of, am I entitled to showing up at my 9 to 5 or, whatever, let's say you're 9 to 5. Am I entitled to like a great experience or like, having a lot of fun, or just like, I don't know, what sort of entitlement do I have? Let me try to think about what I'm trying to say here. I think there was just an attachment to like an emotional aspect with work, where that's not necessarily guaranteed or necessary. I maybe you could think of it as like, fundamentally, if I have a job and that's providing for my family, like I should be grateful for that. Thinking of like Job in scripture, like all these things are being torn away from him, and he continually turns to the Lord and he's like, should I not be grateful? Should I not still praise you? Are you not God? Like, who am I to question you? So same thing with that work situation. It was like, well, this doesn't feel great, but Lord, what are you trying to say in this? What are you trying to show me in this? So,
Totally. Yeah, I was recently listening to Moonshot's podcast on the future of AI and how it's going to take over the world. Not in a doomsday way, but actually bring it on. It's actually going to be a lot of... Anyways, hopefully it doesn't turn against us. But one of the things they said, referring to the Great Depression, is people like before the Great Depression, people, like there wasn't anything worse than going to work. Going to work is just, but then after they lost everyone's jobs, lost their job, they said nothing's worse than not being able to go to work. How about that's a reframe right there. I've been Mark.
No, I can understand just the idea of an attachment to, having an environment that you really enjoy being in, because we're, in our first century world, we can really, comfort can become an addiction in and of itself, because that's what is sold to us in almost all spheres of life, right? Whether it's the comfort of your car, you have air conditioned chairs, just all of these creature comforts that are normal to us, but almost none of them existed 100 years ago, right? So people for all of history didn't have that kind of comfort. They just had to deal with the seasons, deal with life as it came, and positives and negatives to both. But I think the idea that, when you're playing offense in your own life, I think there's a kind of, even if you have a difficult work environment, you might find, okay, well, how do I influence this? How do I make this better for the people around me? How do I, even if our work is mundane, how do I add a little spice to it so that the people around me enjoy their day? So a lot of it is just like, how do I find a way to get outside of myself in order to, in a way, get a little distance from my own thoughts? Because I think, one of the things I've been told in the past, and that always rings true, even you're finding your why, distance brings perspective. And so if you're in a difficult situation, you've been in it for a prolonged period of time, stresses are building, it's like, well, how do I detach from this at least somewhat so that I can kind of become a curious observer? That's a hard thing to do, but it's possible, I think, for everybody. And then there's new insights that come to like, well, what if I did show up 5 minutes early as opposed to just trying to, and what if I found a way, right? All kinds of little solutions of, okay, well, hey, I'm going to go on lunch, and I'm going to go on lunch no matter what from 12 to 1, and I'm going to do this thing that I enjoy, and I'm going to invite some other people to do it so that we come back rejuvenated. Maybe I'm going to ask the boss, like, hey, I know you may not like me that much, but I had this thought about how we could make this a little bit better. It's something like that, right? Where you're at least not suppressing your desire or just the creative gift that God's given each one of us to put something new and fresh and good even into a difficult environment.
Yep.
And sometimes it does feel like you're hoping against hope, but I do think there's not only merit to it, but I think it can change the game. There's a story about Muhammad Ali, and where he was in a fight. And so he was begging his glove man in the corner to cut off his gloves. He's like, I'm done. And his glove man, his corner man was like, I'm not doing it. And in that time, the guy in the other corner threw in the towel. Right? Sometimes there's this weird interplay of like, if you can just stick it out, if you can just find a way to stay engaged, things can turn for you. That's not to say you should stay in a horrible situation for a prolonged period of time, but there is this kind of like, don't give up, stay with the workout. Even if you can't lift that weight, like stay engaged,
right?
Just grab the bar, hold it, tension, stay with it.
Yep. And this is why, so we're talking about legitimate needs that when unmet, they create a vacuum, and illegitimate counterfeit ways we'll seek ways to fill that. And this one we're talking about right now, I love it, is purpose. And we all need that glove man in the corner that is like, hey, I'm not going to let you quit, and to really pursue legitimate needs and things like discovering my purpose, which is a process that takes work. And maybe you hate your job, but hey, what is the opportunity that this work is affording me? What is it? Personal growth in some way, connection with others, growing in an ideal, growing in a particular skill. I know Joe, before he launched the Freedom Group, he basically says, I realized soon into this job as being an executive director of a nonprofit that I was getting basically a 3-year MBA. Like I was getting on the job live ammo training. That reframes like, what can I learn here? Even if I'm not necessarily, and I think you like the job too, but like, how can I grow? And this is requiring having a vision for who you want to become. So purpose, creativity, engaging in creative outlets, connection with others, seeking challenges. A little over a year ago, Mark, you and me and about 20 dudes did a Tough Mudder. It just is really important to have the glove guy in the corner that's going to like help, because it takes effort. It takes a very disciplined guy that's going to really pursue these legitimate needs and these life-giving things on his own. For me, on that note, it's just the power of like connection. And we're living in a disconnected world. Nothing is new. They're hyper-connected, but just totally disconnected behind screens. And it takes a lot of intentionality. And even just with those closest to us, you know, those that are married out there. Tomorrow, praise God, because my wife encouraged me and she's really good at helping me live the accountable life that I want to live, is I'm taking my two girls, older girls, separately on dates. I think it'd be sweet to do that once a month. I probably do it maybe quarterly, probably twice a year, if I'm honest.
Yeah.
I've only been doing it for the last 6 months, so we'll see. But to take them out in that connection, that takes a little bit of intentionality on my end. I did it probably 2 months ago was the last time I did it. Man, they loved it. They were just alive. They were they're wearing their, quote, wedding dresses, they said, that they wore to their last wedding. Connection with those that are close to me, pursuing my bride, but not just like opposite sex connections with, you know, your daughters if you're a man or your wife, but brothers. Man, like, who are the brothers in your life that are like really you're locking horns with and sharing? Just yesterday, I'm like, man, Joe and I are building a business. If we're not careful, all we're doing, and even just like if you're married, if you're not careful, you're just building a business. You're just doing the business stuff. The business conversations are what you go on a date, maybe, and you talk about the business stuff. I threw a meeting on Joe's calendar for Monday. He's off the grid this week, and so he hasn't responded to it yet, but I guarantee he's seen it. And it was the title of the calendar event that I threw his way was, "How are you? Really?" Like, because I need to know how he is. I need to share how I'm doing, and it just takes a lot of intentionality, deep relationships, connection, relationship. You know, building authentic relationships is just such a big deal, because really reaching out, acting out sexually is just a counterfeit way to experience some sort of intimacy.
Yeah, I think to your point, just on no matter how disciplined you are, you need people you can lean on. And I think that's the key, is like, it doesn't matter how impressive of a person you've been, how impressive you are. None of those things. I don't know if I'm cutting out right now. Okay. But yeah, you need other people. I need people to lean on. You know, it's like, I got to put order in my day, or else I don't feel like, you know, I get overwhelmed, et cetera. At the end of the day, you know, I really just need to check in with a couple of key people in my corner, and they need to know what's going on in my life. And, you know, oftentimes hey, honey, how you doing? You know, and well, we got 2 little kids under 2 at home and a third on the way. She's a little frenzied. Sometimes she's not the best person to check in with. Yeah, you know, often she is, but I need somebody that I can just say, hey, dude, I just had a shitty work meeting. You know, this person just threw this on my plate. I need to be able to have that conversation with someone so that I can move on. Right. And so, because what am I going to do? I'm going to go to Quick Trip and I'm going to go get 2 hot dogs and, you know, a 32-ounce beverage. Whatever the case is, you know, you want to have productive ways to cope through these things. And connection, I think, is, yeah, to your point, Nick, there's nothing like it. But it does take a level of vulnerability and a willingness to bare yourself to another person, which is always, risk is always involved. And so there's kind of a courage. I think courage looks different in our day than it maybe has in the past, because a lot of the time courage is just to show who you are, because everybody wears masks these days. I think in ways where in community, you're kind of known on a natural level, whereas now you kind of have to work harder to be known. And that absence of being known often leads to the sexually acting out, or to a numbing of the loneliness that we feel, as opposed to feeling it and then putting ourselves in a position where we can connect.
And talk about the barriers that you experience when it comes to connection. I mean, I know I experience that sometimes too. And you mentioned some of them, Mark, just the idea of I'm driving home from work and I could either sit here and kind of either stew over a bad day at work, or just sit by myself, or listen to a podcast, or listen to the radio, whatever. Or I could pick up the phone and call a bro or my wife, whatever, have a 5-minute conversation, 10-minute conversation, just to touch base, connect. Obviously you want moments where times where you're doing that more, but yeah, to be able to break past the fear of vulnerability and the fear of like, I don't want to look weak. I don't want to look like I have that I'm needy, but to break past that and to be vulnerable and seek to connect with the bro. Because I mean, how often is that guy, you know, Nick, you gave that great story about being at the gym. Like, how vulnerable is it for that guy to come up to you and be like, hey, you doing all right?
Mm-hmm.
But like, we love hearing, I mean, everyone loves hearing a story like that. But how many times am I in that situation where like I see somebody that needs that help, and I I get to choose to be vulnerable and step into that space, or when I'm the guy that like needs that. And I'm like, I feel like when it comes to brotherhood, that could always be something I know that I need to call myself onto and seek to lean into that vulnerability and break past some of those barriers.
It's not urgent. It's never urgent.
Oh yeah, right.
The most important things are hardly ever urgent until things are on fire. Yeah, I think that's a barrier for me. One is this lack of felt sense of urgency. All these other things are just, the to-do list is non-stop piling up. It's hard to measure. It's hard to measure in the moment. Like, oh yeah, if it's just a connection, it's like a business meeting is like, oh yeah, that actually was really helpful because I made this connection and hopefully that'll turn into that. But just for the connection for its own sake, right? It just doesn't feel like, this doesn't seem like much of a utility.
You know, Jason, you talked about LinkedIn earlier and just how you had kind of made like a warm / not a cold outreach, but somewhat warm. And the guy immediately was like, hey, here's my need. Hey, can we talk? And I think that's where people kind of can flip a switch, is when someone asks how you're doing and you actually just come in without a 32 qualifiers. It's like, yeah, hey, here's how I'm doing. And I think that takes courage, because someone could reject you, and you've probably been rejected in the past when you tried to bare your heart, and that memory jumps to mind. But I think that is really the key, is like being, it's kind of like it's like a savage sincerity. And it's not like, hey, I'm going to thrust this all on you, but hey, you asked a question, I'm going to give you a real answer. And I think that fosters a bond that typically is healthy, right? If you're in the right environment, and I think it can, I don't know, I just kind of lost my train of thought there, Nick. But
another obstacle I've experienced is like, just even with that example with sharing with Joe, like really sharing with Joe, like how I'm actually doing, is like, I get in my head, part of it's a lie, but also part of it's been not with Joe necessarily, but like track records of like guys haven't like met me and my stuff. Like I just need a container to like get some stuff out. And I don't want to identify with my thoughts. I don't want to identify with my feelings, but I need to get it out so I don't just like push it down. But the thought is that, it's the nail in the forehead video. You guys seen that one? Where the wife's like, I got a nail on my forehead. It's like, or she doesn't, she's like, it's just causing a lot of pain and it's a headache. He's like, have you thought about taking the nail out? It's like, it's not about the freaking nail. And like, and this is why it's just critically important, in whether, in the freedom groups we foster this, just like, you just have to become aware without judgment of your own stuff. And then we create the container just to get stuff out there. So then if it's like, if we want to accept it, awesome. But if we want to prosecute it and like get rid of this thought, we can get rid of it. But can we have a container in a space where guys can really meet each other in that, whether it's processing the bad stuff or also processing the desires, the dreams, the longings. And that's vulnerable stuff right there. Processing, hey, here's something that I'm thinking about going after, and to be able to be met in that. I guess so the obstacle would be, I don't know if a guy's going to be able to meet me in it, What about you, Jason? What comes to mind? Obstacles
for connection. I think the fear of being seen sometimes, kind of like what you were saying, is this guy going to be able to hold this? Because there's also, I don't want to look at my brother or put my brother in a situation where like he's my counselor, or like if I've got some serious stuff that I'm dealing with and I don't know like if this is, maybe I'm stuck in a negative loop, and like maybe I keep bringing something to that relationship, and I can get insecure about that, So, it could be insecurity, it could be just that, not sure how he's going to receive me or if he will receive me, kind of like Mark, what you were saying, maybe a bad experience in the past. It could make you hesitant to try to enter in again, or feeling like a burden, knowing like everyone's got stuff. It's particularly like me and my friend group right now, like everybody's having babies and everybody's got stuff going on and everyone's got their own thing. So it could be really easy for me to be like, well, they're busy. They've got stuff going on. They've got their own things to worry about. So,
and all of that is true, right? I mean, that is absolutely true. But I can tell you, I don't think I've ever gotten a phone call from a guy who was straight up with me and was like, hey, you got a minute to talk? And I'll tell him, I was like, dude, I got to jump in 5, or I got to jump in 3, but you got my ear for the next 3. And then boom, it just like that constraint leads to, okay, hey, here's what I got going on. And it provides them clarity.
Totally.
I've done the same thing where I've called someone else.
Yeah.
And they're like, hey, I got 2 minutes for you. And for whatever reason, all the fluff and all the, I don't want to be seen as like, flawed or broken or whatever. I'm just like, F it. Hey, here's what I'm doing. Here's what I'm dealing with. I just lashed out at my wife. I'm pissed. She's pissed, blah, blah, blah. So I just needed to, And boom, all of a sudden I brought it to the light, and it's like, it's not oppressing me anymore. I feel like I'm starting to deal with it, and the awareness is there. And sometimes I say it out loud, and I'm like, where did that thought even come from? This doesn't actually make any kind of sense. And that kind of deflates that balloon that's putting pressure on me internally anyway.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, it can just be 2 minutes, but it's just like, boom.
Yeah, what's this guy calling me for? Nobody calls anybody anymore. I'm not going to answer that. This could take an hour.
That's right.
Frame it. All right, y'all. So here's the challenge this week. Identify one legitimate need that you have not been filling in a legitimate way, that you've neglected, and then take one small step to meeting that need this week, ideally with somebody else. Is it like something you've been wanting to build, a creative outlet you've been thinking about doing that you haven't been doing? Is it a connection, some sort of challenge that you've been avoiding? Maybe it's resting on the Sabbath in an intentional way and not just vegging out, or serving in some capacity. All legitimate needs. I want to encourage you guys to take a deep dive on that, discover one, and then deploy that. 2 announcements. Sat mentioned earlier, KingMakers. We're 2 months in. If you are feeling a little bit adrift, not certain of your purpose and feeling like you don't have a vision for your life, I want to invite you guys to hop on a discovery call with us. Go to thefreedomgroup.com/kingmakers to check it out. We're about building an operating system for your life, a grid through which you can live your life and apply your daily habits and your goals to the vision of who you want to become. So we'd love to check you guys out there. And then Freedom Group, we're launching 3 groups this August.
Come on, baby.
Let's go. And we have a wait list already open for next month. So if you're interested in hopping on a call to hear a little bit more about what that could look like for you, visit thefreedomgroup.co. You can fill out a 3-minute assessment on there. You get free access to our Rewire Your Brain course, which is typically $79 if you go directly to it, and a free 30-minute call with us. Thanks for joining. See you guys next time.
Here we go.